MongoDB Atlas, tell us about why somebody, like what advantages you get working with a cloud system like MongoDB Atlas versus trying to set up maybe your own MongoDB running on your own infrastructure.
Yeah, so with MongoDB Atlas, you get a managed offering of MongoDB, right? So, and one of the key things is you can use MongoDB on any of the large cloud providers today. So AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud across several different regions. So we have a multi-region, multi-cloud infrastructure. And the database layer is also distributed within MongoDB. So you get all of this. Again, what I was saying is no developer wants to be a database administrator. You get all of this within MongoDB Atlas alongside other products such as streaming, and we have dedicated search nodes, which we can talk about when we're talking about the vector data, the vector data capabilities of the MongoDB database. So that's why essentially you would.
Nice, yeah, let's talk about those vector databases right now. So I already made a joke earlier about how, if you are not already kind of an AI developer, then you may not be aware of vector spaces, but essentially vectors are a high dimensional space. So it's very easy to imagine a three-dimensional space because that's the kind of visual world that we live in. And so if you imagine a three-dimensional space, you can take any kind of object. And so it was a big thing around 2011, 2012 to be taking words and putting them into a vector space. So there was this very famous algorithm, word to vec, by Thomas Mikolov. And that was an algorithm for taking words in natural language and using some really interesting properties related to words, which is that the meaning of a word tends to be the average of the words around it, which is a trippy thing to think about, but ends up being true because you can train these computer science algorithms to say, okay, just based on the words around, without any labels in your data, you can just take a large amount of natural language and use something like word2vec to create kind of like a word cloud in however many dimensions you want, where the closer you are in that space, the more similar the meaning of the words are. So the British versus the American spelling of a word would typically end up in exactly the same location because whether you say honor with or without a U, it has the same meaning. And then synonyms would be close by. You could end up with a region of database languages. So you'd have, NoSQL and MongoDB would be very close together in a well-trained space. But close by, you'd find SQL and MySQL and kind of relational databases. And then in another part, not too far away, you might have Angular and React, programming languages. In a completely different area of the 3D space, you might have like dates and times. And so just you end up having meaning represented in this three-dimensional space, but with a vector space, you could have 100 dimensions or 1,000 dimensions. Yeah. And so that allows you to have a lot more granularity in that space where moving along one of those dimensions represents some kind of meaning to the way the data are stored. And so anyway, vector databases have been hugely important over the past decade, starting mostly with words, but now whole documents. So for RAG, for example, really important for retrieval augmented generation, you'd typically take, let's say you have 1 million documents, you could convert each of those documents into a location, into some high dimensional vector space, and then you could in real time, based on some query that somebody asks, you could retrieve the right relevant documents based on the semantic meaning of the query. So yeah, vector databases are huge these days for applications like RAG. And I did not know until we were preparing to do this interview that Mongo offers a vector database as well, because I always think of Mongo as just that like JSON structure. But yeah, you have vector databases now as well. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so with MongoDB, we work with a variety of customers, and our roots started obviously with storing data within a database. So we saw most of our customers over a decade ago using search engines on top of MongoDB. And to make it easier, because that's what we're focused on, which is our customer needs, we brought search into the database. So we had Atlas Search. Then we also noticed that a lot of our customers were dabbling within use cases that were related to semantic search with their vector data. So, and most of these folks were bolting on either extensions or maybe another database for the to implement vector search. But we brought that into MongoDB. So now you have one database where you can do your normal lexical search, but also you can do vector search as well. And you can actually combine both and you have hybrid search. So in a situation where you would have, and I've seen this in some cases, 2-3 databases, with MongoDB, you have one database that can power your entire AI application. So that is the beauty of it.